Alrighty, we're going to start back and kind of talk just briefly about elements of time. We've already done some stuff with elements of time. And Shannon, can you maybe help me with a light review of some of the things that we've already done with elements of time?
Yes, elements of time. We've done a little bit of scheduling. We've done just some basic calendar items, things to put on the calendar. We've gone a little bit farther than that, and we connected elements of time to invoices that we were billing people for time, or when we were setting up classes, we were also invoicing them for paying to come to that. We connected it with FlexGrid, but time has a lot of flexibility that we haven't even got into. So I'm excited to see some of that.
That's true. So what I'm actually going to do to start off our little demo on elements of time is we're going to go to the this is very similar to the maps that we use. The good thing about this one is it has all of the key players kind of identified in green. Okay, and basically what happened is initially with the FlexGrid, and it's not totally related, but it kind of is related in a way. Okay, so when we first created the FlexGrid, the first places that we thought we were going to need it was invoices and POs. Okay, that's where our needs were. It was like, I need to sell in bulk, but I need to track in detail, or I need to buy in bulk, but I need to somewhat track some extra pieces of the puzzle when I'm getting incoming products. And so POs and invoices were actually the thing that ended up creating or helping us to create the FlexGrid. And as we created it, we decided that it needed to expand to different things. And at one point, instead of it being 12 main players, it was actually only 10. The last two were quotes and elements of time. Quotes is technically a player, but it had kind of a sub-role because it's like, felt almost dead-endish in a way, because it's like, you create it, you tie it, you do all this kind of stuff, and then it just sits there, unless you needed to use it and then tie it back into an invoice. But we thought that it would make a good other player. Then at the same time, when we added quotes, we also added elements of time. And so all of these other features were actually built before elements of time even kind of came into the picture. Why do you think that it would be considered down here, kind of at this base level?
And as you've expressed multiple times, time is a factor in everything you do in business and everything you do in life. Mm-hmm. Time just continues to go, and things are organized according to time. Things change over time. Things are tracked over time. Everything here has a life cycle and adjusts with changes that occur throughout time. So it affects everything.
Correct. We put right kind of at the heart of our application here, objects and data over time. But this elements of time, rentals and scheduling and reservations and anything. At one point in time, we were like, what do we call this thing? We were like, how about the any scheduler? Or how about the any, like, we just weren't sure what to call it, because you can't just call it a calendar because it may not be a calendar. It might have other pieces of the puzzle that are associated with it. The calendar is just a view of that group of time. And so we didn't want to necessarily call it calendar. We just wanted to call it elements of time. The reason it's down here kind of towards the bottom is it is a foundation. We run things over time. And so, like, we have this little graphic we're starting to just kind of work on for world building. The very, very, very bottom piece of this thing, I'll just kind of blow it up just a little bit. I know it's kind of fuzzy right here on this particular. Run all levels over time. Calendars, dates, etc., etc., etc. This is the known piece that we actually have that we can play with. So everything else that happens has to all eventually kind of, it has some sort of a life cycle, like you said. Okay. Here's kind of an interesting thing, and if you're okay with this, I'd like to play with this level, but just kind of say what happens. Okay. So let's take you, Shannon, just for fun, as a child. Okay. So let's pretend that this is kind of like eventually your life cycle. Okay. We don't know when this is right now. Let's say that you're somewhere in the middle here, okay? Let's put a little tick mark. Okay, so if we're running things over time, let's say this right here. In Shannon's world, in a certain location, she's part of this group. And let's say this is Shannon right here. Okay, she plays part of this group. Okay, so check this out. If we track things over time, Shannon, when you were 5 years old, what's the memory you have?
Moved to Utah.
Okay, boom, right here. This would be an event that happened in that particular time. Okay, let's go to high school. Let's jump forward a little bit. Tell me about cheerleading.
It was lots of fun. Actually, my favorite team sport. Surprise.
Shannon was a cheerleader. So what's happening is basically because Shannon exists, we're capturing data on her and we're running it over time. Shannon is an individual or an object, at least according to this model. And don't be offended. I'm not trying to say that, hey, you're just an object. Like, I'm trying to kind of simulate it. So what we do is we collect data. So right here, she moved to Utah. That's a data point. Okay. Right here, she was a cheerleader in high school. That's another data point. And as we run this whole thing over time, we're able to kind of virtually do some of that stuff. Did he have a question?
I was seeing how that was, but I actually haven't even checked it.
Okay, cool. Other technical pieces of the puzzle. Cool. So elements over time, it's very important that we run this. Okay. So here's how we actually do our accounting. I'm going to switch, instead of having a pencil, say we had these little blocks of time and we knew what was going on. Okay. Well, what we do when we do accounting and all of this kind of stuff is something starts. Okay. We create an invoice or we get a PO and then it advances over time. And depending on where it's at, we virtually map back to it according to what's happening. So the same piece that started right here may eventually, like some things have very short life cycle. Say you go and you buy a candy bar from the store. Okay? You just walk through 3 steps all in a matter of minutes. That's its life cycle. Okay? However, what if you take a different invoice and you say, cool, we're going to start you with a quote, now we're going to turn it into a work order, now we're going to build on it for 3 months, I'm slowly adding different pieces, you're slowly paying me over time, and eventually I turn it into a receivable, and then I'm trying to collect in the next 30 days. So that's way longer time period. What you need to do is, once again, where's the start, where's the end, and where are the important key points according to what happens, okay? It all comes back to time and mapping. That's why we run everything across time. That's what actually helps us to do that. Okay, what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to jump out of this graphic and physically go into elements of time. Okay. And we will come down here to elements of time and click on the time homepage. Now, we've been in here briefly, but this page is very, very flexible. If you're going to play with elements of time, I'm going to give you a reading assignment. You're going to want to read the help files for elements of time because what we did here, it's not just a calendar, okay? When we were developing this, we literally said, okay, you know what, there's Google calendars, there's Outlook calendars, there's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's paper calendars, there's all this kind of stuff. What do we want? And we said, we wanted a business tool where people can tell us what they need to use time for. They can set it up, they can name it, they can add functionality to it, they can then search it and export it, and all these different little things. And so immediately, right off the bat, we said, okay, we're going way past a Google Calendar here. Let's see what we can make this thing do and stuff. So you're highly recommended. You go to Elements of Time homepage, click on Help. Okay, it's not going to take you that long. It's really not that much information, but basically goes into some of the different details. As you get down further, it has different pieces of the puzzle that you can link to other help files that deal with time as well. Okay. This is how we deal with the time templates. You have to think of it like a cookie cutter. Once you set up the template, this is the type and what it does for the functions, then you can use it over and over and over and over and over and over again. So each one kind of has a master time template. Okay? There's tons of different little pieces of the puzzle as far as what are the different subs. These are some of the different subs that we thought would be kind of fun, or these are what we would call the functions of time. What does this do? Okay? Status logs. What's happening? Is it changing? Am I clocking in? Am I clocking out? Am I coming? Am I going? Am I pending? Am I done? That's something that might potentially be important for time. Okay? Additional dates and times. Shannon, you were using this for some of your sewing projects, okay? Basically, you created a main element of time, which was like a big drawer, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to be constantly working on the same project until I get it all done, and then I'm going to bill it. So you were using sub dates and times. Sub comments, we haven't even talked about that. What would that be? That's almost like a virtual forum, or logs, or multiple people commenting on an idea, okay? It could be, hey, I think this. Oh, hey, I think this. Basically what it does is it allows these sub-comments and notes to be added into this different piece of the puzzle. These are the pieces that are done right now, okay? This was called round 1 of elements of time. So we have the main master elements of time. You can create templates, and we've done 3 of these what we call subs of time. These are currently done right this minute, okay? Round 2, we are going to be adding some additional pieces to the puzzle. That should be very, very cool. I'm really excited about this one right here, and we'll talk about it in just a second. But this particular help file kind of explains some of the vision. I'm not going to force us to read it. Like, it's really not super long, but like basically each section, here's what the action status log does. Here's what the additional date and time subs do. Here's what the comments do. They actually can allow HTML, so you can technically even be like, hey, check out this link, you know. If you know how to create the HTML link, right in line, it can actually take you right to that page. Additional sign-offs. Okay, this actually goes to the point of like, do you need somebody to sign off that? Do you need one person? Do you need multiple people? Say it's a project that needs to have clarification. Say it's all documented and stuff like this, and you're like, I need my manager and his manager and his manager, and it's all date and time sensitive, but who's chimed in on that, and have you gotten all your approvals, okay? That's kind of what's called the additional sub dates and times. This one right here, what do you think this would be, Shannon? Additional GPS and RFID tag tracking.
Probably for some of your dispatch type things that you're thinking
Okay.
to just track where people are.
Okay, great. So there was this guy by the name of Barry, and he had a cool idea, and he said, hey, I would really like to do integrity billing. So he does GPS stuff all the time. And he's like, I can just see it. It would be so cool. What if you showed up at somebody's house and you logged it in on your GPS that you were there, okay? And then you're servicing whatever you're doing for an hour or two. And then when you leave, the GPS tracks that you've left. And so according to integrity, you can physically say, look, I was at your house for 2 hours according to satellite GPS tracking and transitions and stuff. Anyway, another thing that would happen is RFID tag. What is an RFID tag? Do you know what that is?
No idea.
It's right here, radio frequency identification, or an identifier, okay? So basically what this does is a RFID tag, what it is it's technically like a little chip, okay? And the little chip doesn't have a battery, or usually it doesn't have a battery, but when it's in a certain field and it gets certain waves, the actual radio frequency, this is dealing with wave technology, the frequency will give that chip enough energy that it's going, it resonates or says, hey, here's where I'm at. So what this does is it allows things to be tracked. They use it for runners on races sometimes, but they have to then be able to pass through those fields. So like this chip when it went through this field, and then this chip when it went through this field. The range isn't super far yet, but technically that's where RFID tag tracking is, okay? So imagine inventory. Say you have, this is superficial, but like check this out. What if you had a bunch of different little widgets and you had a certain spot that they were supposed to be? But what if you could say, where are all my widgets? And the one widget that somebody picked up and carried around the store and ended up 3 aisles later, what if it's like, hey, I'm supposed to be over on aisle 12? Like, basically, that's that kind of a technology. It's location specific, XYZ coordinates, okay? GPS is the exact same thing. You have a latitude, a longitude, potentially an altitude or a height, okay? XYZ, it's cubic, it's spatial. So that's what RFID tag does as well. So that's another sub that we would like to add into it. Okay, one of the things that we thought would be really cool would actually be tying things to payroll. So say you had a job and you had multiple people on a job and you wanted to get good job costing to like how much did this job really cost me to do, okay? You could tie it into these virtual things for payroll and or just sub-logs of this element of time, this bigger job. Who's playing? Did I have to do special things? I work at a ski school during the winter time for a break from the office. And like, say for instance something like this. Say a private is scheduled and I'm assigned to this private, but I'm paid a certain rate for privates and then a certain rate for group lessons, okay? So technically if I'm using it clear to the payroll level, that would be really cool. Or if I had something else that's kind of like, hey, you know, which crew members or job members or team members have been on this. Oh, those are my $15 an hour guys, and I've got 10 of them. And this is my $50 an hour guys. And like, you could basically stack all of that and actually add it all up on one single element of time. And basically it kind of gets into that, what do we have into this project? So this potentially can help with some major job costing. We can do job costing in other ways inside of Adilas, but I can see some of these subs right here actually helping with some parts of job costing. Okay. Additional notifiers and reminders, notifications. What do you think this would be?
Just exactly that. If you want something to pop up or remind you, or you want it to hit the calendar.
Correct. So this is kind of.
Are you on the Elements of Time homepage?
I currently am not. I am actually.
I mean the help out.
I am. Yes. Yes.
They want it to know.
Actually, I'll tell you exactly which one I'm on. Add, edit, subs, or functions of time. So I got to it from the main time homepage. I'll just hit back a couple times. Back, back. Here's elements of time. I hit help. I scrolled down to the bottom, and I just was clicking on some of these other little help file links. Okay. That's how I ended up getting to this particular help file. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so this one will be really cool. Shannon, what's the difference between a push versus a pull technology?
Pull technology is, it's there, the data's all there, but you have to go retrieve it, you have to go ask for it, or filter, sort, and push is, shows up. It's a reminder, it pops up, or whatever.
Okay,
it comes to you.
So check this out. If you have elements of time and you actually set up these notifiers like, hey, you got to do this, hey, you got to do this, and potentially even the reason that it would be a sub is because we thought, you know what, this might be a one-to-many. I might have one event, but I want to notify Tom, Fred, Sally, Mary, okay, or I might want to notify him twice, him once, and him 50 times because he'll never remember. So basically one-to-many relationships as far as what is possible, okay? Okay, this is the one that I'm actually super excited about, and I think it's kind of fun. And maybe, Shannon, since you're a good reader, maybe I'll have you read this. First off, what this is what the pools does is it basically says, this is something I use all the time. Let me drag out of this section, whether it's physical items or just things that you can even add all by yourself that will virtually get their own ID number. They may not even exist. I might be going a little past this, but imagine a rental item, okay? So maybe you have a rental item might just exist in your pool only and not necessarily in your inventory pool itself, okay? It's just kind of like, hey, I have 4 canoes that I can rent or 20 canoes that I can rent, okay? So you technically may not even want them in your inventory pool as far as like your sellable items, but you might want to say canoe rental and then like, okay, which one was it? Oh, that was this. Like basically tying pieces together that are like this whole other sub-pool of like what you can pull from or what you need, or it could even be generic, so it's not even tied to a specific number. It's like, hey, I need some ski poles. Cool. Here's your rental for your ski poles. Like you already know that you might need some of these pieces to create this little ticket for this person who's going to do a week-long rental for a ski vacation or something. Like just some ideas on some stuff. Okay, Ari, go ahead.
No, that's great.
I think we're right here. You must have the admin permission to create a pool.
This could be a pool of users, technicians, items, parts, assets, equipment, stock numbers, locations, rental fleets, vehicles, trucks, tools, etc. You truly have to think any or anything for this tool and what it can do. The tool includes, besides the pool, a sub-assignment date, possible sub-assignment time, controlled by the template, main application type using an existing item in the database, main application ID number, control number, main item in the database, general title or caption, brief description may be dynamic if it's set that way on the template, notes, pool tie-in value, only if item comes from a predefined pool of assets, a sort value, and a status value to show or hide. This multi-assignment feature is very flexible and allows tie-ins between existing items, main system items, and non-existing items. General tie-ins to whatever you would like.
Okay, so technically with the pools, what you can literally do is even if you don't have it in your system as an asset or a piece of equipment or a tool or whatever, you could just kind of be like, you can create this little general category that you can then use on a different job or a different assignment because it would exist in a pool that you could kind of pull from. So anyway, just kind of some fun stuff. Then the very last part of this one says, by the way, don't forget the flex grids. They're tied to time as well. It's not even listed here as a sub of time, but you have the whole flexibility of the flex grid. So like currently what we have on elements of time is we currently only have these three subs done right now.